first too that we want to ask you, because you have a lot of them, okay?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. We'll have some fun.
Oh, this is part of the group right here.
I'm going to find some headphones here. Hang on a
All
second.
right.
Find some headphones.
These are too low. That ring.
Here.
Clip it on
There you
something.
go.
Here,
You're there.
that's good.
That's good.
There you go. There you go. All right.
I'm there.
You want to rock? Let's do it.
That's good.
Anyone here will be more than happy to give an answer, or we'll start a discussion.
All right, we're adjusting our lights here, Tim. And our Skype guy tonight is Tim Duffy, who is very well known in a number of different capacities, but DX Engineering is the big one. Yeah.
Hold on a second, we'll officially start the meeting first.
All right, let's do that then. Okay.
You gotta call a meeting to order.
We got to call the meeting in order here, so Tim, stand by.
What's the dope on the paraphernalia meeting? How do you bring the meeting to order? What do you do?
Just call the meeting to order.
Yeah, it's, and then just, I guess in this case, standard for the desk.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Dave McCumber. I guess I'm the new president of the Fond du Lac Amateur Radio Club. Tonight we've got with us K3LR, who's a super duper ham radio god, and we all admire his antenna farm. Hopefully we'll have a lot of questions for him. And then also we've got, what else we got going on tonight? Just a
normal business.
Just a normal business meeting.
Budget, that kind of thing.
And we'll start by introducing our,
Actually, let's hold the introduction, let's hold the public introductions until after.
Till
the,
after it is.
Oh,
after the
okay.
antenna.
More efficient, Dave.
okay, so then
Steve.
Throw it to Stan.
I'll just throw it to Stan and let Stan take it
Yeah,
from here.
okay, okay. So very good. So Tim, you're on now, so I just want to say a couple things about you. I could go on and on. I got about 2.5 pages here practically of stuff about you. But you know what I like the most though? You know, and I thought about when I was a young man, and part of the background thing you probably provided for us, but at the age of 15, shortly after earning his first class commercial radio telephone license, which is great, you landed a job as chief engineer at the AM/FM radio station, and 1 week after the transmitter blew up, I guess, and you went in, you had to get permission to leave school to go fix the radio station. So I thought that was pretty hilarious, but it shows that the amount of dedication you have to radio at age 15, and a lot of us, I know for myself, as a young man, I've always had a keen interest in radio, so obviously you're into it. His current position is Chief Operating Officer of DX Engineering, and again, obviously he's speaking tonight, which is advertised in the paper, but anyways, he had previous, worked with Chief Executive Officer at, Stellara Wireless for 4 years, and Senior Vice President at AT&T for 2 years, and the Chief Technology Officer for Cellular One for 8 years. So he's got a huge background, but probably the biggest thing is, if you haven't seen his antenna farm, that's unbelievable, but he also started something new way back in 2007 at Dayton, which was Contest University, which I want to ask you more about there, Tim, with regards to what that was all about, where you had about 1,000 hams who graduated from it. So if you're a contester, this is the big thing, and believe me, this guy has a contest station. It's, you know, can't, I don't know how you surpass it looking at his situation there. But we're going to tell us a little bit more about that as well. So anyway, I want to go ahead and, he lives in Pennsylvania, if I'm right about that, and you just won recently or not too long ago, the Barry Goldwater Radio Award, which is premier, and you've got another one coming here in November for your service, I believe, in amateur radio serving the public or whatever, but in New York City. You're receiving another award for that, so we wanted to ask you a little bit about that as well. So to start this all out, Tim, tell us a little bit about, we know when you were 15 you got started in this whole thing, but tell us about your kind of career pathway and tell us how you kind of got into all of this.
And you can hear me okay, right?
Well, we'll turn the volume up a little bit at our end. I think it just needs to be on the front there, Joe. We'll turn it up like another back here.
Tell him to give us a 10 count.
Okay, give us a 10 count here so we can turn it up.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4,
There's the
3,
volume on the front.
2, 1.
Yeah, we got it. Now you're good. Go for
Okay,
it.
great. So Stan and Joe, thanks very much for having me this evening. This is, it's great to talk to you and your club. And I am a very, very big proponent of amateur radio clubs. In fact, I've been president of my local club, the Mercer County Amateur Radio Club, for a number of years. And the clubs are the backbone of this hobby. They're really, really important, and I'm so honored to be asked to talk to you here this evening. I'm in Western Pennsylvania, and I'm 1 mile from the Ohio border, which makes it easy for me to get to DX Engineering every day. But you know, when guys on the air say, "Whoa, it's great to hear the East Coast," well, I'm a long way away from the East Coast. I'm just about in Ohio, but we're 65 miles northwest of Pittsburgh, and really in between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, equidistant. And Stan, Joe, tell me how many guys are there tonight?
Well, we've got probably what, about 18 to 20 maybe right now?
Yeah,
They keep
about 20.
wandering in here, so I'm
All right.
guessing high maybe, but and some people, new people we haven't seen before, so that's good too, that have curiosity, so that's good.
Well, that is very good. And you know, amateur radio has been everything in my life for the past 43 years. When I started when I was 12, and all of my critical and crucial business and career decisions were formed by amateur radio. And you know, for anybody who is new that is there at the meeting tonight and part of this discussion, amateur radio is the ultimate fraternity. There's no doubt in my mind. You know, you hear guys talk about their college fraternities, and I was never part of a fraternity when I was at Penn State, but I was in the amateur radio club, and that was the ultimate. And you know, it is certainly, no matter where you go in the world, if you identify yourself as an amateur radio operator, you will have the red carpet treatment. There's no doubt in my mind, and it certainly worked out for me, even before this whole contest station and everything. You know, radio is the vehicle to all of these tremendous friendships that we have. And you know, you look around the people in the room there tonight, and you wouldn't have met them maybe because if it wasn't for amateur radio. But now that you've met them, they can be tremendous friends, and not only in the hobby, but outside of the hobby. So I've been very fortunate to have spent a lot of time in the cellular industry, but now here for the last couple of years, I've been the chief operating officer at DX Engineering, which is, we have seen tremendous growth at DX Engineering in our business. And again, it's just leveraging friends and new friends along the way as well. So, you know, and there are many clubs that you can belong to. The American Radio Relay League is one of the best organizations because they certainly represent amateur radio here in the United States. But another club that I started getting involved with about 20 years ago, maybe almost 25 years ago, was the Radio Club of America. And the Radio Club of America was formed in 1909, and that makes it the oldest wireless radio club in the world, 1909. And these were some of the pie-in-the-sky forefathers of the radio business, as well as amateur radio, a lot of ties to amateur radio. And I was so excited to be a part of this club. And you can look it up at radioclubofamerica.org on the internet. And you can see some of the rich history that is part of what is known as RCA, the Radio Club of America. And I got involved as a member, and then as, you know, you mentioned the Goldwater Award, which was named after Barry Gold.
Right. Oh, lost you.
me, but had a very, very big part of our hobby. And this past November, I was honored with the President's Award, and I'm Executive Vice President of the Radio Club now, and in 2017, I will become the President of the oldest wireless club in the world, which is just, it's an unbelievable thought.
Wow.
And of course, in 2015, this past year, I was the Radio Amateur of the Year as voted by the Dayton Amateur Radio Association. So a lot of things going on. Contest University, I just opened up registration for the 10th Contest University at Dayton, Ohio. And here in a couple of weeks, I'll be leaving for Puerto Rico. We'll be down at the Puerto Rican Section Convention. We'll have a little mini Contest University there. And in March, we're going to Kuwait for Contest University Golf, which is just an unbelievable deal. And we have Contest Universities in Italy, in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in Australia, and in Russia. So it's a big year here in 2016. Stan, go ahead.
Tim, are you gonna be operating from the KP location in Puerto Rico and from the other location you're doing the university, or you're just going to have the program? And then tell me a little bit more what the DX University is really all about. What do you do? What do you learn there?
Okay, so in Puerto Rico, I was on the air last year from Kilo Papa 4 Alpha Oscar, and that was at the Arecibo Observatory. That's what the Alpha Oscar is.
Right.
And that is the world's largest antenna system. So you can imagine way back when I was 12 or 13 years old and I saw this big dish down in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, and I said, you know, someday I'd love to visit there. And last year I did it for the first time, and this year I'm going back there again. And to think that James Bond was filmed at the Arecibo, and they're constantly looking for little green men. It was just, you talk about a dream come true to see an antenna that big. But so I expect to be on the air again from KP4AO, but you know, that's a side benefit. It's really identifying and working with a lot of the Puerto Rican amateur radio operators that want to learn more about contesting and learn more about antenna systems. I really am focused on that. So going back for the second year in a row. And then when we go to Kuwait in March, that's going to be all about you know, working with hams over there to upgrade their skills and give them new opportunities. Contest operating is a very efficient method of emergency preparedness, because if you can operate a contest and you can work through pileups, boy, could you handle emergency communications.
So, Tim, just out of curiosity, that a number of individuals obviously gone through the contest at university. How many of those actually went on to go to DXpeditions? I know it's an expensive venture, but were there graduates from contests that kind of prepared to go on a DXpedition as a result of that, or really kind of honed their skills for a DXpedition?
I think you can find here coming up tomorrow is the Palmyra DXpedition, and that's Kilo 5 Papa, and that's out in the Pacific Ocean. Very, very rare country. And the organizer, the chief guy, is Craig Thompson, K9CT, who is in charge of the Kilo 5 Papa project. And he has been to Contest University for 5 years now. So he is ready to go.
I love it, I love it. Okay, very good. So a number of questions there. Obviously, we talked a little about, tell us a little bit, I don't know if you can show it to us or not, because we did see it. Joe gave us a link to your, and you can go out and Google your, or go QRZ your call sign. But a little bit about the antenna farm, and we had some questions about that because you've got a whole bunch of towers out there. How much property, how many acres you're covering out there, and then for DX, and then how many antennas, how many stacked, you know, 5 over 5 over 5 or whatever. And then are they rotated? Do we have rotators in them, or are you rotating the towers on those things? So tell us a little bit about that system.
Sure, Stan. You know, I bought this property 30 years ago my wife and I settled here, and it really wasn't for the house. You know, I had to sell her on the fact that that it was really, there was a lot of upside, and we could do a lot of things to it. The house that I'm in, and as part of this radio room, I'm actually sitting in the dining room, and of course behind me is the CW Skimmer software-defined radio rack, which you should have in your dining room. Every dining room should have a CW Skimmer rack. But I managed to convince her that this 11 acres that we're on had a lot of upside potential. And then I actually added an acre across the street to put another. Over the years, I've just kept adding antennas and towers on, and now we've got some of the most outstanding antenna arrays that you can imagine on 40 meters, having 3 full-size 4-element 40-meter beams, and starting at 260 feet, over 190, over 120 feet. And on 20 meters, 230, over 170, over 110, over 50 feet. So those are 2 very, very large arrays. In fact, I don't know of any larger arrays in the world as far as height goes and number of elements on 40 and 20 meters. And they're all on ring rotors, so that the 20 meter beams, for instance, I can have 2 of the top 2 antennas can be aimed at Europe, and the bottom 2 can be aimed over in Japan. So, you know, it allows diversity to occur with those elements.
Domino's Pizza, we deliver.
No, it's N9JA from ICOM calling.
How interesting is that? So for the sake of the people who, I've only been doing this for about 37 years, so it's not a long time maybe, but there's a lot of old timers that have been doing a lot more than me, and the number of people here that have been probably more years than me. But for the new people, you've got those stacked arrays, 4 over 4 over 5 over 5 are at different heights. And of course, our president, Dave McCumber, N9WQ, asked the question, we know why you stack them at those heights, but for people who don't understand that, why would you have one at 200 feet and one at 100 and some feet and another one all the way down to 50 feet? What was the purpose of that?
That's a great question, because when I started out, I had a tri-bander antenna that I was using in a friend's house at 80 feet on 20 meters. And I thought, wow, this is great. I can hear Europeans. I can work Europeans. It doesn't get any better than this. And then I started to read articles in the National Contest Journal, which the ARRL publishes. And they talked about stacking these antennas, taking one antenna and stacking it above the other. And the fact that you could get 3 dB of gain by stacking these antennas and feeding them in the same direction. And what I learned over time was that there was a lot of, experience with various stacking widths. So how far the distance was between the stacks, and how high above the ground that these antennas were. And about the time that I started to get very interested in that here, computer modeling came in, and a program called HFTA became available through the ARRL, which talked about terrain in a specific area and how the fall off occurred. And so here we stacked for gain, so we have 4 antennas that can be aimed in the same direction and get more gain, as well as direct or azimuth diversity, so that we can work stations in Europe and stations in Asia at the same time. And the higher above ground that we are, the lower the angle is into the target area. And that is a very important thing, because paths into Asia are lower in angle than paths are into Europe, which are higher angles. So, but HFTA, which is it comes part of the antenna book from the ARRL, has been a tremendous teacher to me for takeoff angles and how angles of arrival work here. And so that's why we have the stacked arrays here at K3LR.
Yeah. Okay, and how many towers do you have out there? There were a lot.
There are 13 towers here.
Okay. There's a lot.
And, and 8 of those towers are involved in an 80-meter array. There are vertical antennas that are 75 feet tall. And then there's a tower on every other band, 10, 15, 20, 40, and then 160 meters. So, yeah, 80 meters gets 8 of the towers, and the rest of the bands get 1 tower each.
Wow, okay, and so you're using it, like the towers for 80 meters of like a 4 square then? Basically, what you're tuning it, you can turn it different directions, or are you not using it in that capacity?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Stan. The 80-meter antennas, if you take 4 of those towers in a 4 square array, and you circle them around as a 4 square, so that's 4 of them on 80 meters, they're 75 feet tall, but then you take and add another 4 square, 5/8 of a wavelength away, and you have 2 4 squares that are phased together, and so you get, it's like stacking 4 squares, so you get 3 dB of gain. So there's 8 verticals used in those 4 squares, and so we get 3 dB more gain on 80 meters because of those stacked 4 square arrays.
Well, I suspect when you key up, Tim, people actually do hear you quite loudly. You know, I'm working the South African station on 40 meters almost every night. Guys on there, I think on 71, 40, 56, almost every night. Danny, we work Danny over in South Africa. He must have a really great station because I can hear him really well. So I think he's got a bunch of stuff up there. Some other guys around the world that have huge antenna arrays, and you know when they're on the air, it's just unquestionable, or no question about it, they are a booming station. So for somebody here, he obviously doesn't have room for 13 towers. DX Engineering provides a lot of stuff to build things with. I mean, you've got tubing, so much diameter, you can build just about anything you want to as far as mass stock, all of that. Build a 4 square from DX Engineering, and you've got switching things. So what would you recommend somebody might have? We've got one, I don't know if she's here tonight or not, but we've got one of our members lives on a farm, has got a lot of property. You know, but places that maybe have a postage stamp yard. So what would you recommend for them if they have limited space, and maybe DX Engineer if they wanted to build something?
You know, we have a lot of building blocks that can go along to build antenna systems, whether they be verticals. You know, verticals are a really good solution for limited space backyards, and I've had several vertical arrays, sometimes just 2 verticals, spaced a quarter wavelength, and we've got a dual vertical array, the DVA package, that allows you to have 3 different directions that you can switch from in that DVA. You can switch end fire off the back, and then a circular array off the DVA. So with 2 verticals, you can get gain, you can get front to back, and you can get some DX. And whether it be on 20 meters or on 40 meters or 80 meters, but that is a very effective way when you have a very, very small footprint for a backyard. You know, and so we have the aluminum tubing, we have verticals themselves, whether they be for 20 or 40 or 80 or 160 meters. And then we can also make the coax sections that you need to drive these arrays. So if you want to put up a dual vertical array and you say, listen, just send me all the things that I need. Make it turnkey for me. Send me the coaxial sections, send me the verticals, send me the dual vertical array box, send me the switch box, and all I got to do is put all this stuff together and off I go. So, you know, and one of the things that I did when I came to DX Engineering 2.5 years ago is I said, everything that I use at this very successful contest station, I wanted to have available to anybody that wants to do the same thing that I've done and have the same antennas, have the same fun with getting on the air and operating. And so our catalog, our website is just chock full of that stuff, Stan.
So on the verticals in particular, you've got DX Engineering has a multi-connector ground plate that goes underneath the vertical as well. You absolutely want to have that, right? and go with radios a half wave or a half wave out for each one of those, or not, or varying lengths?
Well, at least a quarter wavelength on the lowest frequency that you're going to use.
Okay.
That's really what you want to have, Stan. So at least a quarter wavelength. Here at K3LR, most of our radios are about 3/8 of a wavelength, a little bit longer. There's been some great articles in the National Contest Journal by a good close friend of mine, Al Chrisman, K3LC, where he said a little bit longer is a little bit better. So, but that radio plate is so special at DX Engineering, it's patented. I mean, that's how cool it is.
That is cool. So I'm gonna open it up for questions. Joe's got a,
Ask him what frequency is that dual vertical?
okay, what frequency is the dual vertical operating at? The dual vertical?
The dual vertical array, the DVA, operates on one band at a time. So you have to select, do you want it to operate on 80, or operate on 40, or operate on 20? There's different models.
Okay, so you would buy the model that the band you'd want to operate. So it's a mono bander, basically.
That's right.
All right, okay, which makes sense. If you want to, if you're running a 4-square, generally you're going to run a mono bander anyways, but that's a kind of a triangular kind of thing maybe, right? Or
Right.
shoot in different directions, okay.
Right.
How
Two
much,
verticals.
how much gain does that have over Unity? I mean, is it
About
have some
about
gain?
3.5 dB.
Okay, great. Other questions from the audience here for Tim? Nobody, okay, Joe?
Stan, how did DX Engineering get so damn big, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Okay, so Joe wants to know how you got so, DX Engineering got so big. Maybe it's because when you came there or whatever, but or whatever you created. How did it get so big, and you know, tell us a little bit more about the company itself. It's actually gone crazy, so.
It has gone crazy, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. One of the great things is DX Engineering has a great team of very experienced, seasoned ham radio operators that are on the phone and are ready to help. And so what happened when I became a part of it is that I brought some enthusiasm and some real focus towards contesting and DXing and getting on the air. And so we tailored the product line. You know, we brought in lines like Kenwood and Yaesu and Alinco, and then we've created some really cool products under the DX Engineering brand, so that only we manufacture, that are, you can only get from DX Engineering. And so world-class coax, good Amphenol connectors, all the things that you want to make your station really work well. So what I did was I took all the components that are part of the K3LR contest station. And, you know, if you're looking at those YouTube videos, Stan, there's a YouTube video from a guy in England that talks to the K3LR station with 100 milliwatts.
Oh my God, that's great.
And so if you go to the QRZ.com page, if you click on that and you say, I can't believe that.
That's unbelievable. Wow. So what are you running at your station there for radio gear? Then obviously you got software-defined stuff up there, but what are you go strictly software-defined radios or flex, or what are you running?
No. The main radios here at K3LR are the ICOM. They're the IC7851, which is the latest radio.
Yeah.
And wow, what a radio it is! It's a phenomenal radio. And so we have that on every band, and before that we had the IC7800s, which were great radios as well, but the 7851 is, and it's the right mix of top-notch receiver performance as well as ergonomics. You know, not too many knobs, just enough knobs, and big knobs, so that you can turn the big knob to go up the band.
Two separate receivers in that radio too, distinct
Yes.
receivers, yeah, like
Yep.
the 7800. But I understand that the 751 is much improved over the 7800. And in fact, I have a good friend, K3LR Scott. I don't know if you probably ever talked to him as a Mayo doc, but he wants to get rid of his 7800s. I think he wants a 7851. So, but that'll cost you an arm and a leg. That's not a cheap radio to buy. That's a very nice radio, though. That's extremely expensive.
You know, but the great thing is some of the lower cost radios have a lot of features in them that were inspired by the higher cost radios. So the IC 7600, for instance, is a very good, it's a sweet spot price-wise, has a lot of features and functionality. And I got to tell you, Stan, we're very excited about the IC 7300, which is coming out here in the next month, 2 months, something like that, when the FCC type acceptance happens from ICOM. And that radio is going to be, I think it's going to be less than $1,500, and it's a phenomenal radio.
So, knowing that you've got the 7851, and a lot of the people I've talked to, 4X6TT, Amir, and again, he's got a 3000, FTX 3000 Yaesu, I do too. But you can run a lot of the radios now totally remotely. And again, he can turn his rotator, probably can do the same thing with the ICOM. Do you run your radio ever at all remotely from off-site?
You know, I used to do that when I lived in Oklahoma City for 14 years. I was doing a lot of remote operating with the IC 781 and even the 7800. But now that I'm here every night, I don't do any remote. But all of these radios, whether it's the Yaesu radio or a Kenwood radio, you know, the Kenwood 480 splits up very easily on the internet. And that's all the rage is remote operating. So that's a great way to get on the air.
And I think probably in particular, you know, as we get older, a lot of people move into areas where they have covenants and all kinds of things that they still can be a ham operator. Actually run remotely, so you could set up a remote station and guys could log in. It's kind of a neat solution for people who are landlocked or have you know, association things that won't allow them to put up a tower. So it's kind of a nice deal. So that's why I asked that question, because again, almost all the new stuff, you know, the higher end stuff is all remotable, which is kind of nice if you know how to do it.
Yes, yeah, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Stan.
absolutely. So other questions, Dave? Do you have a question for?
Yeah, I'm curious as to his opinion about what's more important, the skyhook or the radio.
Oh, yeah. Still looking for that skyhook, right?
Well, you know, I think it's important, especially we've got some new guests here.
Oh, yeah,
And
right.
I think it's important that they understand that you don't need $1 million to put an antenna up. I think a ball of wire, a couple of insulators, an old weather scraper, and a PL259 connector, and a fella could make himself a beautiful dipole antenna that would work just great.
Right.
And I think it's important that we, you know, that we let the other guys know that if you don't have 40 acres and 13 towers and all the rest of it, you can still get a signal in the air with a piece of
absolutely.
wire.
But your question is well taken, Dave, in the sense of saying, you know, it's like your cameras, you know, the camera, you can have a good camera body, but the lens is really the big deal. In amateur radio, I'm assuming, again, you can have a 7851, or you can have a old 130 Kenwood. And again, RF is RF, but the big difference is going to be what you have, either the dipole or the antenna, or the beam you've got out there. I think the antenna is the big deal, is it not, Tim?
It is the big deal, but you know, if you take a very nice antenna and you hook it to like a TS-130 or even an ICOM IC706, you know, some of these radios, their front ends were designed for mobile use and not necessarily for having a big antenna, and they can be overloaded, so you really have to use the attenuator. But the bottom line is that a full-size dipole is really hard to beat. I mean, you know, a lot of these guys get sucked into the G5RV craze and things like that. These antennas have a lot of loss to them. They have a lot of inefficiencies to them, and they don't get the kind of performance, and they get discouraged. So a full-size dipole that is fed with either coax or open wire with a good tuner is really hard to beat, Stan.
Right, exactly. I agree with you. Dave, another question?
And you know, to touch on this other thing, the most simplest and best antenna I found on a budget, and it's not a dipole, so you don't have to have $1 million, is the vertical that DX Engineering makes. They make what they call a fast taper vertical. It's 43.5 feet, which means it's non-resonant on any particular frequency, unless you do light up 60-meter work. But the antenna allows you to operate on all bands from about 6 meters, and you can even go into 80 meters with it, depending upon your radio system. Now, I've got about 50 radios, about 50 to 60 or 70 feet long, And you'll also use a DX Engineering radio plate, which like he says is just a masterful piece of equipment.
Yeah.
If you've got that thing sit down there, you can spend an afternoon in your backyard with a piece of pipe and put that antenna up, and they make a package that has everything. It has the unit in it, it has the fold-over base, it has the ring, and all the hardware. And the hardware is stainless steel, which is a big,
Yeah, it's
big,
a big
important
deal.
thing.
Huge.
If you're putting wire down in your backyard, or anywhere else for that matter, and it's exposed to moisture, condensation, high temperature, low temperature, and all of these sorts of things, if you don't use quality components there, it'll fail. You just will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just wanted to point out that a vertical antenna takes up hardly any footprint. It's probably the most economical, real-time power antenna that you can buy, and they make probably the best one out there. And that's from personal experience.
Did you pay for that commercial, Dave, or not?
Well, if you go to QRZ, if you go to QRZ and look me up, you'll see there's a picture there of the antenna system as I was putting it together. And so you can actually see the radials. And I also bought the MFJ automatic antenna tuner, which if you replace the unit that comes with the system, if you place an antenna tuner at the feed point right there, you've got a 600-watt antenna system that you can go into your house, pick up any radio, hit a button, boom, zang, bing, you're on the air. Life is great.
It is. It's not that hard. You're absolutely right. That is a very good solution for a small footprint.
Right. You don't have to sell your first child or anything like that.
You know,
Dave.
and I've been reading on their website too, and it tells you that if you want to update that antenna to run 80 meters with better, outcome, and 160, you add a piece of wire to the end of the antenna.
That's right. It's that easy.
It's that easy.
Wow. Now I want to rush out and buy one of those.
You should. It's a really a spectacular antenna. It really is.
And is that the one you're running on 75?
I run that all the time on 75, just the way it is.
Signal. But I also built a dipole that you can
Yep.
use me to do, which works extremely well.
Yep.
Any other questions from the floor? And otherwise we'll let Tim go here pretty soon. Tim, did you want to, one last question, because we understand, aside from amateur radio, you're a race car guy, are you not? Are you involved in racing at all? No, you're not. I'm getting a head nod. No, I heard racing. I thought maybe you were. Okay.
No, DX Engineering is owned by Summit Racing.
Okay.
And Summit Racing is #1 in aftermarket auto parts in the world, and we're very, very proud of that. Summit Racing has a 45-year tradition of 100% customer service, and we certainly take after that at DX Engineering. But I have one hobby. That's all I can afford.
I agree.
And I've never had anything else, and I can't imagine, Stan, doing anything else. It's the first thing I think about in the morning, and it's the last thing I think about at night.
Yeah, it's a great job. It's not a job, it's play for you. It's just, it's a great thing. Anybody else with questions before we let Tim go? Anybody? Buddy, anybody? Nope? We're good. Thank you so much for being a part of our meeting tonight, Tim. You are an awesome guy, and we've talked to a lot of folks over the last few months, thanks to Joe. He's set up, we've got Elecraft, we've had ARRL headquarters, we had, who else do we have on here? We had Bob Heil was on with us. He's a great guy too. There's just a lot of good folks out there on amateur radio. And the nice thing is it's a great fraternity, great society where you get to meet a lot of really, really down-to-earth, nice people. That's the beautiful thing. You meet people all over the world and all over the country. You make a lot of friends, and that's the big thing. And I think we made another friend tonight. So thank you so much, Tim.
Well, Stan, thanks very much for having me here. This is very special for me to be invited to talk to you and your club. And my son is a junior in economics at Clemson University. So tonight's a pretty special night as his football team is playing for the national championship. So I appreciate the early dismissal. So I could go. He went back to school a week ago to get back into classes, but he and I will be texting here throughout the game. And Stan, I just want to congratulate you and Joe on a very fine radio club, and your leadership and your commitment to this hobby. up in Wisconsin, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. And I thanks for all the nice things that you guys said about the company that I love, DX Engineering. And my commitment is we will continue to bring you some of the best and finest products ever. And we'll look forward to seeing some of you at Dayton, and in other points, we'll look for you on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. 7-3s. Thanks again, Tim. Catch you on the air.
73 from K3LR.